To speak of Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon merely as a martial arts film is to miss its quiet, devastating core. Beneath the flowing robes, the suspended bodies, and the glimmer of steel lies a far more intimate battlefield, the human soul. From its very first moments, the film presents a painful truth that feels both ancient and modern. The greatest tragedy of being human is not physical defeat, but the inability to live honestly as oneself. The story does not ask who is strongest, but who is free. And its answer is unsettling, because freedom, in this world, is always fragile, conditional, and costly. The film unfolds in a society governed by invisible laws. These laws are not written on stone, yet they shape every decision more forcefully than any sword. Tradition, reputation, honor, duty, and gender roles form a dense web that wraps itself around each character. No one is openly chained, yet no one truly walks unburdened. The tragedy is subtle. People learn to police themselves, to silence their own desires before the world ever has to. This self-censorship becomes the most efficient prison of all, because it masquerades as virtue and wisdom. Li Mu Bai stands at the center of this moral landscape, not as a conqueror, but as a man who has grown weary of conquest. He has mastered the external world, yet remains restless within. His longing to abandon his sword is not an act of weakness, but an admission of exhaustion. The Green Destiny Sword, for all its beauty and power, represents a life defined by obligation. Every victory has added another layer of responsibility, another expectation to uphold, another role to perform. By letting go of the sword, Li Mu Bai hopes to reclaim something more elusive than honor: inner peace. Yet even this desire to withdraw reveals the film's central paradox. To step away from the world is itself a choice shaped by the world. Li Mu Bai is not fleeing chaos alone, but also unresolved emotion. His adherence to Taoist principles teaches him that attachment leads to suffering, that desire clouds clarity. And yet, the film dares to ask whether complete detachment is itself a form of fear. Is renunciation wisdom, or is it simply another way of avoiding pain? In this tension, the film refuses to offer easy answers, choosing instead to linger in ambiguity. What makes the tragedy sharper is that no force in the film is overtly cruel. Society does not shout, it whispers. It does not strike, it waits. Characters are not punished for rebellion alone, but for hesitation. They are undone not by dramatic defiance, but by years of quiet compromise. The audience slowly realizes that suffering does not come from one catastrophic choice, but from countless small ones made in the name of propriety. Each unspoken feeling, each delayed confession, each moment of restraint accumulates like sediment, burying the possibility of joy. This is why the film feels timeless. Though set in a distant historical era, its emotional reality mirrors the modern condition. The pressure to conform, to fulfill roles, to sacrifice personal truth for social stability is not confined to feudal China. The characters' struggles echo the dilemmas faced by anyone who has chosen safety over authenticity, duty over desire, or silence over honesty. The film holds up a mirror and asks an uncomfortable question. If we obey every rule imposed upon us, but lose ourselves in the process, can that truly be called living? Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon does not romanticize suffering, nor does it glorify rebellion for its own sake. Instead, it mourns the quiet erosion of the self. It suggests that freedom is not the absence of rules, but the courage to confront what those rules cost us. The tragedy of being human, as the film portrays it, lies in this cruel contradiction. We build the structures that protect us, and then spend our lives trapped within them. And sometimes, by the time we realize the cage exists, we have already learned how to live inside it. Li Mu Bai is not introduced as a man driven by ambition, nor as a warrior hungry for glory. He enters the story already tired, already reflective, already standing at the edge of a life he no longer wishes to continue. His mastery of martial arts is unquestionable, yet the film is less interested in his strength than in his restraint. He is a man who has learned to control the body completely, but has never allowed himself the same freedom of the heart. In this contradiction lies the essence of his tragedy. Li Mu Bai represents the cost of living a life defined by duty so thoroughly that personal desire becomes something foreign, even dangerous. As a disciple of Wudang, Li Mu Bai follows Taoist teachings that emphasize stillness, balance, and non-attachment. These principles are not empty words to him. They have shaped his entire existence. He believes that clinging leads to suffering, that desire disrupts harmony, and that true wisdom lies in knowing when to let go. His decision to give up the green destiny sword is the ultimate expression of this philosophy. The sword, steeped in blood and legacy, symbolizes not only power, but expectation. As long as he wields it, he remains bound to revenge, to lineage, and to the endless cycle of violence. By relinquishing it, he seeks liberation from a life that has demanded everything but offered little peace. Yet the film quietly exposes the limits of this spiritual discipline. For all his talk of detachment, Li Mu Bai is deeply attached to something he has never allowed himself to claim. His love for Shu Lien is not impulsive or reckless. It is enduring, restrained, and profoundly human. It has existed for years in silence, shaped by guilt and loyalty. Because Shu Lien was once promised to his closest friend, who later died due to conflicts tied to Li Mu Bai's own past. He believes that pursuing this love would be a betrayal. In choosing silence, he believes he is choosing honor, but honor, in this case, becomes a slow erosion of happiness. What makes Li Mu Bai's struggle so compelling is that his suffering is self-imposed, yet not self-serving. He does not suppress his emotions out of cowardice, but out of an almost painful sense of responsibility. He carries the weight of other people's lives, choices, and deaths as if they were his own. This burden transforms love into something he views as selfish. To love openly would mean prioritizing his own needs over a moral code he has internalized completely. In doing so, he mistakes endurance for virtue and restraint for enlightenment. The film repeatedly suggests that Li Mu Bai understands his own contradiction, yet lacks the courage to resolve it. He speaks of inner unrest, of a mind unable to find stillness despite years of discipline. His inability to focus during meditation is not a failure of practice, but a symptom of unresolved truth. He has mastered the external techniques of letting go, but not the emotional honesty required to truly release regret. His desire to retreat from the world is less about transcendence and more about escape. He hopes that by abandoning action, he can also abandon feeling. His interactions with Yu further illuminate this inner conflict. In her, Li Mu Bai sees raw potential, unshaped by humility or patience. She possesses the talent he has sought for years, someone worthy of inheriting the Wudang legacy. Yet she also embodies everything he fears: unchecked desire, defiance of structure, and emotional impulsiveness. His frustration with her refusal to submit mirrors his frustration with himself. He recognizes that wisdom cannot be forced, just as love cannot be lived by proxy. His anger when she rejects his guidance is not rooted in pride alone, but in the realization that one cannot renounce responsibility while still longing to fulfill it. The most devastating aspect of Li Mu Bai's story is that clarity arrives only when time has run out. When he finally confesses his love to Shu Lien, it is not a dramatic declaration, but a quiet release of years of silence. He admits that his life has been wasted on hesitation, that fear disguised as discipline has stolen the happiness he could have known. In this moment, his philosophy evolves. He no longer speaks of detachment as virtue, but of honesty as liberation. He chooses truth over restraint, even though it comes too late to change his fate. Li Mu Bai's tragedy is not that he loved and lost, but that he loved and waited. His life becomes a warning whispered rather than shouted. Wisdom without courage is incomplete. Detachment without honesty becomes denial. Duty, when followed without compassion for oneself, can hollow a life from the inside. Through Li Mu Bai, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon suggests that true enlightenment is not found in suppressing desire, but in acknowledging it without fear. To live fully is not to abandon responsibility, but to refuse to let it silence the heart. Shu Lien is often perceived as the most composed figure in Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, a woman of discipline, loyalty, and emotional balance. Yet beneath her calm exterior lies one of the most painful and quietly devastating journeys in the film. Her tragedy is not written in dramatic gestures or impulsive rebellion, but in silence. Shu Lien embodies a form of virtue that is praised by society, admired by others, and devastating to the self. She is not imprisoned by walls or weapons, but by an invisible cage constructed from honor, propriety, and expectation. Unlike Li Mu Bai, Shu Lien is not bound by a martial sect or philosophical doctrine. Her restraint comes from something far more pervasive: social morality. As a woman in a rigidly hierarchical and patriarchal society, her life is shaped by values that prioritize reputation over fulfillment and sacrifice over happiness. Having once been betrothed to a man who later died, she carries the weight of that past like an unbreakable vow. Though no law explicitly forbids her from loving again, custom and public judgment render the choice unthinkable. Her loyalty becomes a lifelong sentence. What makes Shu Lien's suffering particularly poignant is her awareness of it. She understands her own feelings with clarity and precision. Her love for Li Mu Bai is neither naive nor impulsive. It is mature, restrained, and deeply reciprocal. Yet she chooses not to act, believing that desire must yield to moral order. This choice is not imposed through force, but through internalized expectation. She has learned, as many women of her time have, that virtue is measured by endurance, and that silence is a form of dignity. The film never portrays Shu Lien as weak. On the contrary, she is competent, respected, and morally grounded. She runs her own security company, commands loyalty, and navigates the martial world with authority. But this external strength stands in stark contrast to her emotional confinement. Her independence exists only within socially acceptable boundaries. She can fight, lead, and negotiate, but she cannot openly love. In this contradiction, the film exposes the limits placed on female autonomy, even for women who appear powerful. Shu Lien's silence is not emptiness. It is crowded with unspoken thought. Each interaction with Li Mu Bai carries layers of meaning beneath restrained dialogue. Their conversations are careful, measured, and filled with pauses that speak louder than words. When they are together, the audience senses what remains unsaid more acutely than what is expressed. Their shared glances and subtle gestures reveal a connection that is both profound and perpetually deferred. The tragedy is not that they fail to recognize their love, but that they recognize it too well. Her interactions with Yu further illuminate her role in the story. Shu Lien sees in Jen both a reflection and a warning. Jen's rebellious spirit and disregard for social norms are foreign yet fascinating to her. She attempts to guide Jen not only in martial discipline, but in emotional maturity. Her criticism is stern, sometimes harsh, because it is shaped by lived experience. Shu Lien understands the consequences of unchecked desire, yet she also understands the cost of suppression. Her guidance is not rooted in jealousy or control, but in concern born of pain. However, Shu Lien's worldview is ultimately limited by the same values that confine her. She cannot fully articulate an alternative path because she has never allowed herself to walk one. Her advice to Jen reflects the belief that stability requires restraint, that freedom must be tempered by obedience. In this way, she becomes both a victim and a carrier of the system that restricts her. The film does not judge her for this. Instead, it presents her as a tragic intermediary between tradition and change. The emotional climax of Shu Lien's journey occurs not in triumph, but in loss. When Li Mu Bai finally confesses his love, it is a moment of both release and devastation. For the first time, the invisible cage cracks. The rules that governed her life loosen their grip, if only briefly. In this confession, Shu Lien experiences what she has denied herself for years: emotional truth, unfiltered by duty. Yet the timing is cruel. Love is acknowledged at the threshold of death, where fulfillment and mourning collide. This moment redefines Shu Lien's virtue. What was once endurance becomes grief. What was once restraint becomes regret. Yet even in this sorrow, the film treats her with profound respect. She is not punished for her silence, nor mocked for her obedience. Instead, her pain is portrayed as the inevitable consequence of a world that demands self-denial as proof of worth. Her story becomes a quiet indictment of a system that celebrates sacrifice without questioning who bears its cost. Through Shu Lien, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon articulates a deeply human truth: that virtue, when defined without compassion for individual happiness, can become a form of cruelty. Silence may preserve honor, but it cannot preserve the heart. Her invisible cage is not built from iron, but from expectation, and breaking free from it requires more than strength. It requires permission to desire, to choose, and to live openly. For Shu Lien, that permission comes too late, but her story lingers as a reminder of what is lost when a life is lived entirely for others. Jen Yu enters Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon like a sudden gust of wind, disruptive, intoxicating, and impossible to ignore. She is young, gifted beyond measure, and burning with a desire to escape a life that has already been decided for her. From the outside, she appears privileged, protected by wealth, status, and beauty. Yet the film makes it painfully clear that this comfort is also confinement. Jen Yu is a prodigy raised inside a gilded cage, and her rebellion is not born from malice, but from suffocation. She does not seek chaos for its own sake. She seeks air. Unlike Li Mu Bai and Shu Lien, whose struggles are shaped by years of discipline and restraint, Jen Yu's conflict is immediate and volatile. She has never been allowed to choose who she becomes. Her education, her marriage, her future have all been arranged in advance, presented as inevitabilities rather than options. No one asks her what she desires, only what she must become. In response, she clings to the one thing that feels truly hers. Her talent, martial skill, becomes her language of resistance, a way to assert identity in a world that denies her autonomy. Jen's genius is undeniable. She learns techniques without guidance, masters stolen knowledge with frightening ease, and moves through combat with instinctive brilliance. This natural ability sets her apart, but it also isolates her. Talent without mentorship becomes arrogance, and power without discipline becomes recklessness. Jen mistakes her superiority in combat for wisdom, believing that strength alone can secure freedom. In doing so, she confuses independence with defiance and liberation with escape. The film carefully constructs Jen as neither hero nor villain. She is impulsive, dishonest, and frequently cruel in her disregard for others. Yet these flaws are inseparable from her youth and inexperience. She has never been taught patience, humility, or consequence. Her rebellion lacks direction because no one has ever offered her a meaningful alternative. The world she rejects has failed her, but the world she pursues is one she does not yet understand. This tension makes her deeply human, a character driven as much by fear as by ambition. Jen's relationship with Li Mu Bai reveals the core of her illusion. He recognizes her potential immediately and offers her something she has never truly had: guidance without domination. His desire to take her as a disciple is not an attempt to control her, but to temper her raw ability with understanding. Yet Jen rejects this offer with hostility. To submit, even voluntarily, feels to her like another form of imprisonment. She cannot distinguish between authority that confines and mentorship that liberates. In refusing him, she believes she is choosing freedom, when in truth, she is choosing isolation. Her confrontations with Shu Lien further expose the immaturity of her rebellion. Shu Lien challenges her not with envy, but with moral clarity. She criticizes Jen's selfishness, her dishonesty, and her lack of accountability. These words strike deeper than any blade because they threaten the narrative Jen has built for herself. To accept responsibility would mean acknowledging that freedom is not simply taken, but earned. Instead of listening, Jen responds with aggression, clinging to the belief that doing what one wants is the same as being free. The film also contrasts Jen's fantasy of the martial world with its harsh reality. She romanticizes the idea of wandering heroes, imagining a life without rules or restraint. Yet when she enters this world, she encounters violence, mistrust, and consequences she cannot escape. Her victories leave destruction in their wake, and her arrogance breeds enemies. The freedom she sought begins to feel increasingly hollow, revealing itself as another illusion. The cage she fled has merely been replaced by a different kind of confinement, one built from pride and loneliness. Jen's relationship with her former lover adds another layer to this tragedy. Their bond represents a brief moment where freedom feels real, rooted in mutual desire rather than obligation. Yet even this love is shaped by inequality and uncertainty. Jen understands, perhaps more clearly than she admits, that their future together is fragile. Love alone cannot erase social divisions or guarantee safety. Faced with this truth, she hesitates, torn between longing and fear. Her indecision mirrors that of the older characters, suggesting that age does not define tragedy, but awareness does. The breaking point for Jen arrives when her actions finally produce irreversible consequences. Her defiance costs lives, shatters trust, and exposes the limits of her power. For the first time, her confidence collapses under the weight of guilt and loss. In this moment, the illusion of freedom dissolves completely. She realizes that choice without responsibility is not liberation, but recklessness. Genius does not exempt one from consequence, and rebellion without wisdom leads not to self-discovery, but to ruin. Jen Yu's journey is not a celebration of youthful defiance, but a cautionary reflection on its dangers. The film does not condemn her desire for freedom, nor does it glorify her methods. Instead, it asks a difficult question. What happens when a person breaks free from one cage, only to carry its bars within them? Jen's tragedy lies in understanding freedom only as absence rather than as balance. She wants to escape control, but does not yet know how to guide herself. Through Jen Yu, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon reveals that freedom is not a destination reached through force, but a state earned through self-knowledge. Genius without humility becomes a burden. Rebellion without reflection becomes destruction. Her story stands in contrast to the quiet endurance of Li Mu Bai and Shu Lien, forming the volatile heart of the film. She is not wrong to seek freedom, but she is unprepared for what it demands. And in that unpreparedness, the film finds one of its most painful, enduring truths. As Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon draws toward its end, it becomes clear that this is not a story about victory, nor about redemption in any conventional sense. It is a meditation on letting go, and on the irreversible cost that accompanies every meaningful choice. The film does not reward its characters with happiness for their suffering, nor does it punish them with simple moral clarity. Instead, it offers something far more unsettling: the understanding that freedom, once chosen, cannot be separated from loss. To live truthfully is not to escape consequence, but to accept it fully. Li Mu Bai's death stands as the emotional and philosophical turning point of the film. Struck down not in a grand battle of equals, but in an act of compassion, his end feels both tragic and inevitable. For most of his life, he has practiced restraint, believing that detachment is the highest form of wisdom. Yet in his final moments, that belief quietly transforms. When he confesses his love to Shu Lien, he does not speak as a master or a philosopher, but as a man who finally understands the cost of hesitation. His words are not dramatic declarations, but a release of decades of silence. In choosing honesty at the edge of death, he lets go of the identity that has defined him for so long. This confession reframes everything that came before it. Li Mu Bai's philosophy of non-attachment is no longer portrayed as incomplete, but as unfinished. He has learned how to let go of violence, of vengeance, of ambition, yet he has not learned how to let go of fear. Fear of causing harm, fear of betraying duty, fear of claiming happiness at the expense of moral order. His final choice suggests that true liberation does not lie in denying desire, but in acknowledging it without regret. Freedom, the film suggests, begins where honesty replaces restraint. For Shu Lien, this moment is both a gift and a wound. She finally hears the truth she has long known but never allowed herself to confirm. In that brief embrace, the invisible cage that has governed her life dissolves, if only for an instant. Yet freedom arrives hand in hand with irreversible loss. She is left not with fulfillment, but with memory. The film does not grant her consolation, because consolation would soften the truth it seeks to convey. Some choices, no matter how virtuous, leave scars that cannot be undone. Letting go does not guarantee peace. It simply ends the lie. Zhen Yu's final act carries the film's meditation on freedom to its most ambiguous and haunting conclusion. Standing atop the mountain, she is confronted with the full weight of her journey. Her talent, her rebellion, her losses, and her longing converge into a single moment of decision. When she leaps into the void, the film refuses to explain her intention. This ambiguity is deliberate. Her choice cannot be reduced to despair, nor can it be framed as triumph. It is an act of letting go, stripped of certainty. Some may see her leap as an escape, others as an offering, others still as a final attempt at autonomy. What matters is not the interpretation, but the acceptance that freedom, once pursued, does not promise safety. Zhen Yu has spent her life chasing the idea of liberation, believing it to be a state without limits or pain. In that final moment, she seems to understand that freedom is not the absence of consequence, but the willingness to bear it alone. Her flight is not a rejection of love, but an acknowledgement that love cannot erase the choices already made. Through these endings, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon articulates its most profound truth. Every life is shaped not only by what we choose, but by what we relinquish in the process. Duty requires the surrender of desire. Desire demands the risk of loss. Silence preserves order, but erodes the self. Speech liberates the heart, but shatters stability. There is no path without cost, no freedom without sacrifice. The tragedy lies not in choosing wrongly, but in believing that one can choose without paying the price. The film offers no judgment, only reflection. It does not instruct the audience on how to live, but invites them to confront the quiet compromises they have made. How many truths remain unspoken in the name of peace? How many desires are postponed until they fade into regret? How often restraint is mistaken for wisdom and endurance for virtue? In its final moments, the film does not close these questions. It leaves them suspended, much like its characters, between longing and release. In the end, letting go is not portrayed as an act of defeat, but as a recognition of impermanence. Lives end, love fades, or arrives too late. Choices echo beyond intention. To be human, the film suggests, is to live within this uncertainty, to love knowing loss is inevitable, and to choose knowing certainty is impossible. Freedom is not a destination one reaches unscathed. It is a moment of truth one accepts, fully aware of what it costs. Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon closes not with resolution, but with silence. And in that silence, it leaves behind a question that lingers long after the final image fades. If every choice demands a sacrifice, what, then, is the price you are willing to pay to live honestly?